Hey there, it's J-Dog. Hey, today I'm in Lowell, Massachusetts, visiting the Lowell National Historic Park. This National Historic Park is all about the textile industries here in New England. Lowell, the city of Lowell, was one of the centers for textile productions. And this National Historic Park really is all about the mills, and you see these big mill buildings that have all been kind of restored here now, but many of these were built in the 1800s and the early 1900s, where Lowell was really the center of the textile industry in New England. And so they've made a National Historic Park out of a lot of these buildings that you can go into and see what the mills were like. So I want to show you here. We're going to go into the visitor center, and they have a little museum in there. I'll show you what that's like, and then we're going to take a tour and walk around and see what these mills are like. So stay tuned. In the visitor center here, and this is really just a little small museum that talks about the beginnings of Lowell, where the mills started here in the 1820s, and you can see kind of they have some little exhibits here, but more of the exhibits are in some of the other buildings that I'm going to go through. But this is I thought I'd just do a quick walkthrough here of the visitor center, so you can see a little bit of what this is like. But yeah, a lot of these mills started in the initially in the 1820s, 1830s, and it tells a story about really people and how they came to work in the mills, starting out with original people who worked on the farms, and then a lot of immigrants. This is a weaver here that was used in the textile mills. But this is the visitor center, and we're going to go and take another look at some of the other buildings. This is the map of the Lowell National Historic Park. You can see it's kind of spread out in the city of Lowell. But I'm just going to kind of point where I am here. I'm at the visitor center, which is right here. And then I'm going to take a walk up, and I'm going to see the boarding house here, here, as well as this Boot Cotton Mills Museum here. That gives you a little sense for how this is laid out in downtown Lowell. So I was just in the visitor center, which is that big building behind me here, the Market Mills building. That was once a carpet mill in the mid-1800s. But one of the reasons, I just wanted to show you something here, one of the reasons why Lowell was chosen was because of water power. In the mid-1800s, they didn't have steam engines, and they used water power to power all these mills. And the reason Lowell was chosen was because it was situated along the Merrimack River. And what they did is take the Merrimack River and actually built a series of canals. I'm going to show you one of these series of canals that they used to used water power to power the mills. So right behind me I'm looking at is one of the canals that was used. They dug, and there's several of them that went by these big mill buildings, and they had water turbines that were hooked up and used a pulley system to power all the machines. But that's kind of one of the unique features of Lowell here, is that when it was built, they built a series of canals diverting that river through the city so they could power all the mills here. So, interesting note. I just wanted to show a shot here of one of the other canals here in Lowell that powered the mills. This is actually the Merrimack Canal, and it flowed down to some of the other mill buildings, but now it's actually a nice little park that they made here. But just want to show you another quick shot of one of the canals in Lowell. Behind me is one of the boarding houses that is one of several boarding houses that were built in Lowell to house the mill workers. The people who owned the mills had to build the housing, and so this is a very typical structure that was built in the 1830s to mostly house women that worked in the mills. That was one of the interesting things I learned at the visitor center, was that most of the workers in the mills were women. And this is, I want to go through a tour of one of these here in a second, but this is one of the boarding houses looked like where the mill workers lived. So I'm in the Boot Cotton Mill, and about to go in and see what the running of the looms, just like they did it over 100 years ago. So let's go in and take a look. Might be a little noisy in here, so won't be able to probably do too much talking, but let's go and see. You can see the pulleys system that they use. That's the same type of system that they used back, when they first built the mill. But these are the same type of machines that they used. This is actually the machine they used for making cloth here at this cotton mill. This is an interesting model of what it looked like inside one of these mill buildings. You had different floors here where the workers worked. Again, most of the workers were women, and the women each had responsibility for like sometimes 8 machines each. They had to oversee these looms making cloth. And you can see just, this is a little depiction, but also down below here you had the turbines. You can just barely see them under here. Big turbines that provided the power for powering these mills, but kind of interesting. Behind me here are some examples of the cloth that they made here. You can see the big bolts of cloth here made in this mill in Lowell, but just a nice example. See the finished product of what these workers produced, both cottons and woolens that were made here in these mills. Interesting, huh? One of the reasons I wanted to come to Lowell Historic Park was because of my family. My grandparents on my mother's side worked in mills all their life in New Hampshire along the Nashua River. And my mother's parents emigrated. They were French Canadians, came down from northern Quebec to get off the farm and work in the mills, much like all the people who came here to Lowell to work. But this little exhibit here kind of meant something to me because my grandmother, who was born in 1890, I believe, or 1892, went to work in the mills in New Hampshire as a weaver. She basically did what this woman was doing. She worked, went to work when she was 9 years old, and I think she worked right up until the early 1960s in the mills that were still producing textiles. And she ended up being a supervisor in the mills, overseeing several women that were being a weaver. But she started out as a young girl doing much like this woman, this model here, running one of these machines. My grandfather worked in a bleaching mill, uncles and aunts all worked in mills in New Hampshire. So this coming here to Lowell kind of had some meaning to see what it was like for my grandparents working in the mills. Kind of interesting to learn and see firsthand how they made a living. Well, I enjoyed my visit to the Lowell National Historic Park. I had a real nice visit here. I went through the visitor center. I went through the boarding house. Sorry, I couldn't take any video in there. It just wasn't really conducive for shooting video. And I went through the boot cotton mill museum there. That was really fascinating. Got to talk to a weaver and understand how they did their job. But nice little walking tour around the city of Lowell here to get to the different places. But highly recommend it. If you're in Massachusetts and near Lowell, stop at the Lowell National Historic Park to see some history of the Industrial Revolution. But thanks. See you on the road.